All right, everybody. Well, we are back. It is the 2025 Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana Tri-State Football High School season. And myself, Daniel Kuhn, and Jacob Berkemeier are back for year two of the Monday Night Rewind show. If you guys followed along with us last year, you should know what to expect. We're going to talk about some of the big games, some of the stuff we saw over the course of the weekend, and talk about the next week going forward. I, for one, Jacob, am thrilled to be back. I'm glad that Tri-State Football brought us back. And, of course, we can't go without saying that this is Tri-State Football's 20th season. So it is a honor to be just a small part of the 20 years. But we're here. We're live. It's week one, so maybe a little shake off the cobwebs a little bit, but we've got it.
Yeah, I know I'm excited to be back. This is my third year with Tri-State, and it's definitely cool that they've been around for 20 years, and I know they've seen a lot of great players come through the Tri-State area, and we have a lot more this season too. I know we caught some games over the weekend that were some good ones, so I'm excited to talk about it, excited to be doing this show again, and should be a good season ahead for us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think last year was really exciting across the tri-state, and I think 2025 has some good games and good football in store as well. So, without further ado, Jacob, I'm going to kick it to you. First game out of the gate, first episode of the season. You were so lucky to go capture or report on the Blitz 5 game of the week, St. X and Lakota West.
Yeah, barn burner, man. Two great defenses matching up against one another, and I mean, with that, Greg and I were talking a little bit before the game. I mean, that St. X defense is really impressive, led by Kobe Clapper, who's a Notre Dame commit. He's playing linebacker, and then they actually Daniel Vollmer, if you remember last year, was splitting a lot of time on both sides of the ball, playing a little Wildcat QB, running back. I think he ran for close to 1,500 yards last year. Um, he's pretty much full time defense now. And then they also have Braden Riley, who got an interception that game. He, I believe, is Northwestern. But they have like four Power Five guys in that secondary linebacking core, and the rest of their defense is really, really solid. I mean, West is no slouch either. They obviously won GMC, or was it Princeton or West that won GMC? I think it was West.
I believe it
I
was
can check
West. I
real
could
quick.
be wrong on that, but
Yeah, I'll check real quick. But I do think it was West. Yeah, West went 8-1. Oh, they tied. They both were 8-1 last year for GMC. So I mean, I think this is the second or third year in a row where my week one game has been St. X Lakota West, and it's always just great time to go watch it. Greg said, I think Speck and Bolden have played against one another 26 times total in their career, which is pretty crazy considering that Bolden's been coaching, I think, 19 years, and they've matched up like 11 times in the playoffs. So would not be surprised if these two teams end up meeting again sometime in the playoffs. But when it comes to the actual game, it's definitely a slow start. The first score didn't happen until about 5 seconds left in the first quarter, and it was a nice fade route to Cam Taylor, who he had the two touchdowns for the game, both from Jackson Frey, who is a new transfer. Last year, you remember Chase Herbstreit was the quarterback for X. Jackson transferred in this year from a school in Columbus, and I think has some history there. Like his dad played at X, and you know, talk about a rough opening game to start off with that Lakota West defense, man. I mean, they're so fast. They're really well coached, and they were everywhere to start the game, and so he was able to find Cam Taylor on a one-on-one ball down the sideline for a 30-yard touchdown. And then West was able to answer back with a score. It's a passing touchdown to Tyson Davis on a little swing route. And that was in the second quarter. And then, pace kind of slowed a little bit. And X was able to get an interception with Braden Riley. didn't end up converting points, got held to a field goal and they missed. But really what won X the game down the stretch was they kind of cleaned up. They had a lot of pre-snap penalties earlier in the half and everything, and in the first half, and then second half didn't really have a lot of penalties, and we're finally able to get the ground game going, control the clock in the fourth quarter, and kind of felt like one of those games where you gotta, whoever's going to kind of be able to control the most clock and just move the ball was going to be able to get the win. And X was able to get out of there with a win at home, start the year off 1-0. So definitely a really good start for them. But
It seems to me like if you're going to compete in the GCL South in 2025, you've got to have a defense to stop Moeller. And from what you're telling me, it seems like X has accumulated that strong defense that they need to really compete in the South this year. And knowing what I know from them last year, obviously bringing back Kobe Clapper was a big deal because he was an absolute game wrecker last season as a junior. And, bringing him back senior year to kind of lead that defense and really kind of be the ace up the sleeve for that St. X Bombers team is important for them. And then, of course, for West, I mean, it's not always the end goal to start the season 0-1, but, you can always hang your hat on you've lost to a really good team, and there's a new week coming up. But, hearing from what you're telling me, it's not surprising that it was a little bit of a barn burner. I slightly remember seeing a St. X game last year against LaSalle, and I think it was 6-0 or something like that, 9-0. So, typical, GCL South, GMC head-to-head and not match up, defensive kind of struggle. But, the biggest thing is, right, week one, you're always going to have some procedural penalties, I think, on offense. I think that's kind of just name of the game because everybody's learning, doing it really for the first time in a game rep all season. It's going to be a little shaky, but, it sounds like the Bombers got their feet settled and were able to kind of finally get the ball rolling. And I think their running game is primed to be the calling card for their offense as well. But Cam Taylor is another one of those guys for St. X, the same vein as Kobe Clapper. I think he's going to be a really, really big piece of that team this year. And in order for them to compete, which I think they will, but he's got to be getting the ball fed to him, as much as they possibly can. And then, of course, you bring in a transfer quarterback, first game, new school, big time game, at home, St. X, even though he was the home team, that's not an easy place to play. So it understandable that it was a little shaky, but I think that they'll get their issues settled. I think Coach Specht will have those guys humming on offense and be ready for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked with Jackson and, Cam Taylor after the game, and, just think with Jackson, he's talking about just, as the season progresses, he'll just continue to get a little bit more and more comfortable in that offense and building chemistry. And, both of them kind of spoke to a lot of the hours they put in over the summer, after conditionings or liftings and getting those reps in. And it paid off week one. Cam Taylor's 2 targets both went for touchdowns. So, it's looking like a good start for them. And, I'm sure we'll be touching on both of these teams plenty throughout, our Rewind show, because as of right now, I think our Shuru, Greg Shoemaker, has them ranked currently 2 and 3. So X is 2 and 3 is Lakota West in our Blitz top 25 rankings, Blitz 5 top 25 rankings for this week 2. But
yeah, for sure. There'll be 2 teams that are going to pop up on the radar all season. It's exciting to see where they go from here. All right, so Jacob was sent to the beautiful St. X campus. I was sent to Covington Catholic across the river, or I guess not for me because I live in Kentucky, but still across the river from Jacob. I was at Ryle and Covington Catholic, game 1 of the season, 2 pretty premier programs in Northern Kentucky, and it did not disappoint. For starters, this game was absolutely based around Savage. I can't remember his first name, and that's really disappointing because I've been saying it all weekend. Jacob Savage. There it is. Apologies, Jacob. Jacob Savage, the running back and linebacker duo or dual threat for Ryle. He was their absolute, stud out of the backfield last year. Really carried that Raiders team to the state championship game last year. And it was pretty clear and apparent that his number 21 was going to be called early and often in this football game and probably the whole season. Ryle started out immediately just playing smash mouth football. I mean, there's nothing else other to describe it. They're a smash mouth team with the pretty much the same roster that they took to Lexington last winter. So they're primed to be, back on the hunt for a state title this year. But from the very outset, they were pretty dominant in the trenches of this football game. Covington Catholic, that is no slight. They've got some good players and some young stars in that team. Obviously, Cash Harney is a big part of that team. And defensively, they've got some seniors on that squad that look very, very capable of holding their own and holding their weight. The first drive for Ryle was pretty simple. They just gave it to Savage up the middle, and I think he took him all the way down the field and ended up walking in for a touchdown. And then while Savage was the calling card for Ryle, there was one other player for Ryle that absolutely stood out, and Dylan Lee. He plays wide receiver and cornerback, and he had an all-timer of a game on Friday night. Whenever it seemed like Covington Catholic was going to have the momentum or get the momentum they needed to get back in this football game, it got sapped pretty quick by the Raiders. First drive for Covington Catholic, Cash Harney rolls out right, doesn't have a lot open, tries to find his receiver on a coming back, a slant, and just threw it right to Dylan Lee. Lee didn't make it all the way to the house, but he got all the way down to 20, set up another easy touchdown drive for the Raiders, and Dylan Lee actually caught the touchdown on that drive to put him up 14-0. So he bookended the drive by creating the turnover to get the ball, and then he scored the touchdown as a result of his own turnover. So it's a pretty good little 1-2 punch there in one drive for Mr. Lee.
Absolutely.
And then Covington Catholic actually came back pretty quick. Dylan Geyser, their senior running back, who's kind of the bell cow of that offense, the Colonel's offense per se, really shined, I think, at a lot of different places on Friday night. He was pretty much their go-to when they needed any sort of yardage, whether that was out of the backfield passing or running the ball. And really kind of get Covington Catholic back in the game, he took a screen pass off to the left side towards the sideline, got stopped by, I think, 3 or 4 different Raiders defenders, somehow spun around, and managed to take it all the way down the sideline for the touchdown. And that was really kind of the spark that the Colonels needed. They ended up
stats right now. I mean, he had like you were saying, 20 total touches, 5 receptions, 15 rushes, and he had 212 yards and 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air. So yeah, that's a day right there.
He is absolutely the like I said, the guy for this Colonel's offense. And they actually managed. So the second drive third drive, I beg your pardon, there's an interception by Dylan Lee I was speaking of a little bit ago. The third drive Ryle had, Covington Catholic actually clamped them down. They were able to keep Savage in check and able to get the ball back, and that's when they took it down the field and ended up. Cash Harney was really electric. There's that Dylan Lee touchdown grab I mentioned as well. Cash Harney was just really electric with his feet. And here's that screen pass I was talking about that he managed to somehow get to the end zone. I mean, I think Ryle maybe thought he was out of bounds, but absolutely phenomenal play from Dylan Geyser.
Good camera work there because you can see stayed in here, and just the balance control there to be able, to kind of slow your movement down, and then the field vision to be able to cut that back and then get up the field and finish it off too. A lot of coaches you'll hear talk about, kind of finishing speed and being able to turn, maybe a 25-yard gain into a 50-yard gain and a touchdown. So it's like you kind of saw that on display there, and a lot of good traits to have in your running back, the vision.
Absolutely.
Balance control.
This game was for sure the battle of the feature backs. And so Ryle got stopped. Covington Catholic took it right down the field. Cash Harney was pretty electric running the ball from the quarterback position. He strolled in for about a 10-yard touchdown. And just when you thought Covington Catholic had all the momentum, they get the ball back after the Cash Harney touchdown, tie game. Dylan Lee did it again. Carney rolled out to his left, got under a lot of pressure, tried to just give a little toss over to Dylan Geyser. Geyser bobbled. Dylan Lee made a diving interception, his second of the game. And from that point on, it was all Ryle. The score doesn't necessarily tell you the whole story. Covington Catholic got a last-second touchdown. I think Geyser had a rushing touchdown, or maybe it was a passing touchdown. But he had one as literally as the clock's hit 0 to make it 26-20 to end the game. But the takeaways, I have from this game, Ryle is absolutely, on track to be a big contender in the state playoffs this year for Kentucky. I think they're hungry. I think they're motivated. They came so close last year, didn't get the job done. But when you've got a Mr. Football candidate and an Indiana commit in your backfield, and he plays defense too, he's a damn good defensive. He's a damn good linebacker. But when you've got that guy, kind of just the bell cow, it's hard to bring him down. He's a big kid. I would not want to be on the tackling end of Jacob Savage. But when you've got that, as your feature player, you have a lot of confidence as a football team.
Absolutely.
For Covington Catholic, I think that this is not necessarily the worst loss they could ever have. This is a good Ryle team, and I think that Covington Catholic's got a lot of talent, and I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with come playoff time. One win, one loss at the beginning of the season doesn't define your whole season.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, if you're Covcath, you look at that game and you say, and you said one of the interceptions was off a bobble from a receiver.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cash Harney was having a pretty good game if you take away the interceptions. 13 for 18, 2 picks, and one of them's a bobble and just great play, diving interception. I think you clean those turnovers up. You're right in that game. You might end up winning that game.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's definitely something to build on for the year, just kind of cleaning up. And, that stuff happens week 1 where it's just, jitters and, turnovers happen. What you're kind of hoping for is peaking at the right point of the year, which is the end of the year once come playoff time. So it's always good to have a good first test as well. And then just touching on Ryle too. I mean, they had 42 rushes as a team and 11 pass attempts. They went 3 for 11 passing and only 26 passing yards, but didn't really matter if you're, they had Savage with 87. Their quarterback for Rax, or Nathan Barax, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, 85 yards, and then Damian Arness had 79 yards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's 3 guys getting close to 100 right there. And
absolutely.
I'll tell you one thing, it sucks as a defense to have to just the football is just getting run down your throat the whole game.
Yes.
It's
absolutely the Raiders.
Possession.
The Raiders calling card this year is going to be dominating the line of scrimmage, just pounding the rock. That's their offensive MO. And then those guys turn around and play a linebacker and shut down the line of scrimmage there too. It's actually worth noting real quick before we move on. Savage actually went down with cramps, I think, early third quarter, and Ness came on and really picked up the brunt of the load for them, and it was a big part of that game as well. Maybe it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, or at least in the box score, the way the other guys did, but without him, they may not have been in as much control of that game.
Yeah.
So I'll quickly segue. Jacob and I were talking earlier, and we wanted to highlight some of these games. And one of the games was that was really interesting to read the box score of was the Highlands thriller over Douglas in double overtime. Jacob, I don't know if you know this, but the quarterback for Highlands is son of former Kentucky football star Jared Lorenzen. And his son is Tayden Lorenzen, and Tayden threw for, correct me if I'm wrong, he threw for 3 touchdowns or 2 and ran in the game winner in overtime.
No, it does not look like he threw any. So it looks like they went double QB actually.
Okay.
Or maybe he's more of a wildcat quarterback because Tayden had 14 rushes and 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Okay.
And then Rio Littmer who's a senior. Tatum's a junior.
Mhm.
Rio went 13 for 18, one pick, 133 passing yards, and one touchdown. So I don't know if it's a little bit of a dual QB thing, bring
Mhm.
Tatum in if he's a little bit better on the ground and as a Wildcat quarterback. We didn't have the luxury of being at a double OT thriller this weekend, but we were both still at pretty good games.
Yeah,
But can't be in, you know, two places at once. But we did feel
yeah.
like we needed to touch on this game because, Highlands did have a really good squad last year,
Mhm.
and we're not super familiar with Douglas, but definitely wanted to touch on Highlands a little bit
For
because,
sure.
you know,
And
they were good last year.
yeah, absolutely. The Bluebirds had a good squad last year. I think kind of reading up on them a little bit. I think they're in a good position again this year. But the story behind is it Taden? Let me make sure I get his name right. Is
Yeah,
it
Tatum.
Taden Lorenzen? That's a cool story. Jared Lorenzen meant a lot to the University of Kentucky football program.
Hmm.
So it's neat to see his son out there making plays here in Northern Kentucky.
Okay, yeah, I thought I knew who Jared Lorenzen was, but I wasn't exactly sure. But yes, I definitely know who Jared Lorenzen is now, the
Yes,
lefty.
of
Yeah, he
course.
was a beast at
Yes,
Kentucky.
he was.
Uh-huh.
So it's neat to see his son out making big plays in Northern Kentucky, carrying on the family name and the family
Hmm.
position. Apparently, I guess they're doing a little quarterback by committee there. But hey, you
Yeah,
know what? Stats as a quarterback or stats as a quarterback doesn't matter how you get them running or passing.
right.
All right,
Absolutely.
Jacob. This is Jacob's area of expertise. We're gonna talk about the what's next for our GMC
Yeah,
stalwarts here, Jacob.
so yeah, as we were talking a little bit before pre-show, you know, top three teams, well, I guess top four, Lakota East, so from last year, West and Princeton were both 8-1. Hamilton and East were both 7-2. And East is the only team week one this year that got a win. And tell you one thing, it was pretty sure pretty convincing.
They took care
Let
of
me see.
Centerville.
Yeah, or 35-20. So, I mean, two score
Mhm.
win over Centerville. QB, Niall, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. If the K is silent or not, either Knutson or Knutson. 23 for 30 though, but really Ryder hooks, and I know you remember him from last year.
Mhm.
Ryder was really good last year, but
Yeah,
I mean Ryder went 23 attempts, 286 yards, and three touchdowns. So I'll tell
that's
you
putting
one
in work.
thing. Yeah, and then also a few catches for 19 yards too. So I have a feeling he's going to be that bell cow the whole year for them, and he'll be a problem. And talk about a fun matchup later down the road. Week 10 actually, West versus East this year, and that'll be a good one. But yeah, well, I mean Princeton, tough draw week one playing
Mhm.
Moeller. They lost 41-20. And the crazy thing is, Matt Ponatowski didn't even really have that many passing yards, actually. He only went 10 for 21 and 72 yards. So if you're the Princeton defense, that's Mr. Ohio,
Yeah.
player of the year last year. And you're able to hold him to a pretty, quiet day passing the ball for a
Mhm.
guy who threw over 50 touchdowns last year. Now, the only thing Princeton needs to work on a little bit and clean up is, six interceptions.
Yeah.
So the fact that the score was that close and it was only 41-20, I feel like you have to feel a little bit, you got to feel like things can improve a lot. Like if you just don't turn the ball over in that game, you're probably in a one-score game with the state runner-up from last year. And David Hambrick's a good runner, a hard runner, tough. Watched him last year a couple of times. And then Landon Marie, their wide receiver, had 7 receptions for 102 yards and two touchdowns. So I think they have some guys on offense. I just really think it's, cleaning that up. And you also have to give, a lot of credit to the Moeller defense. Anytime you can force 6 interceptions as a team, and, you know, you always make the joke that DBs can't catch and defenders can't catch, but that game they were snagging everything.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you one thing: if Moeller's able to generate doesn't have to be 6 turnovers a game, but if they can generate 2 or 3 turnovers with the offense they have, with Ponitowski leading them, they're going to be really hard to beat. And then the last team kind of wanted to touch on was just Baden beat Hamilton 38-20. And Hamilton definitely lost some guys. I talked to Coach Crouch during our pregame show at Gold Star. I know you were kind of handling more of the Kentucky teams, but I got a few of the Ohio teams, and they lost their running back last year. They had a good running back, and they lost a few guys on offense last year. But I know Coach Crouch was really talking about still feeling confident. And I still think they can bounce back and have a really good year in the GMC. But yeah, Baden, great win for them against a Hamilton team that's looked really good the last few years with Coach Crouch. And, they just, Hamilton, same kind of story we've been talking about with a lot of these week 1 games. 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions. So I think a lot of these things are things that you can clean up moving forward in the year and can get a little bit better, and you just tighten up on some things and they'll be okay. Elijah Jones for that, their passing attack wasn't bad. Elijah Jones, 12 receptions, 111 yards. Jordan Bryant, 8 for 80. And then, I think talked to Andre Bailey a little bit at that kickoff show, and he had 19 rushes, 55 yards for a touchdown. So I think maybe working on that run game a little bit too could help Hamilton out. But give credit to Baden too. I mean,
Absolutely.
the GCL definitely dominated some of the public schools this week. Not just the GCL South, but GCL Co-Ed too.
McNick had a big win over Turpin. And I do know that. So yeah, GCL's, of course, GCL's showing out. What else is
What's
new?
new?
But but coming back, kind of switching or tying back to what you were talking about, Jacob, absolutely week 1 is the week to get the hiccups out of the way, right? Now you're going to have turnovers and stuff throughout the season. That's just how the game is played. But, like Princeton, 6 interceptions, just take that, stat sheet and throw it in the garbage. Like there's no shot that happens again, right? And probably not a shot they play a team as good as Moeller. Now, somebody could absolutely rise up this year and challenge Moeller for really that perennial top of the mountain spot. We hold them in such high regard. I don't want to diminish any of the other squads here in this tri-state, but obviously, Moeller's just got a pedigree with them, and with Matt Ponitowski at the helm, it's hard not to like them and hard not to view them as the top school. I know they're the number 1 team in our top 25 again this year, at least to start. But like I said, if you're Princeton, 6 interceptions, take it for what it is. It just wasn't probably never going to happen again. You may have 6 interceptions against you the rest of the entire year, right? So it's just, week 1, it stings to lose, but I think, especially when it's a rivalry, I know Princeton and Moeller is a rivalry that goes back a long time, but move on, and I think they've still got a great squad. And going back to, I think Hamilton, the Big Blue, I think they've been really impressive the last few years. Really one of those underrated teams that kind of flies under the radar and shows up big in the big moments. Week 1 against Baden, take a loss, but like I just said, clean up some of the mistakes, and they've still got a good team. Sounds like their passing attack's primed to be pretty good again this year as well. I distinctly remember them being pretty good through the air last year. And to tie it all off, you mentioned Ryder Hooks. I don't even believe he was the starting running back last year. He may have been, but he did not have as many touches, I think, in a game. But he was absolutely electric last year. So it's not surprising that he went off week 1, really kind of getting the opportunity to be the guy. And listen, man, you mentioned Lakota East, Lakota West later in the year. When's the last time that game was even viewed as competitive? And that's not a slight on East. That's just, reality. It's been really impressive to see, sometimes when you have a big name like that come in and coach high school football, it doesn't always work out. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. But John Kitten has done a great job with that program. He's turned them in for pretty much being, I think, a basement dweller in the GMC to one of the premier teams. And it's exciting. It's going to be exciting to see how they progress throughout their season as well.
Absolutely. And I know, and then a little bit with Middletown too. I mean, Middletown, they started the year 1-0 against they played Troy and got a win. And they come, it's a good chance Middletown might start their year 5-0 because they play Fairfield, Oak Hills, Coleraine, Sycamore, and then they go into West. So I mean, you definitely have an interesting, kind of way the GMC shakes out
Yeah.
this year too. So really excited to see what happens there, and also just with the GCL. We kind of touched on Moeller briefly, but how you brought up earlier, I mean, you got to have a defense in the GCL South, and
Mhm.
I think Elder's defense was pretty solid last year. Elder was just young. So
Mhm.
I think, you have a lot of guys that are coming back playing. Elder's defense is going to be solid this year. LaSalle's defense is usually pretty solid. And then, I mean, St. X, I think they'll give them a run for their money because St.
Mhm.
X's defense is really, really solid.
Absolutely.
Um, I mean, and then with that, I think were we going to talk about just the top 25 rankings before we kind of signed
Top
off?
25 briefly, because there's actually a game or two I want to highlight this weekend that would be
Mm-hmm.
worth mentioning and tie into that.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, I got you.
Yeah.
So I'll just start while I'm sitting here, talk kind of doing the searching on old Google here. It is week 1, ladies and gentlemen. Give us
I have it pulled up if you want me to
oh,
present real quick.
see,
Yeah.
it really is week 1, everybody.
Yeah.
I am Jacob and I are all pretty much on the same page, but not quite. Can you
Yeah.
pull it up? Is it showing? Can you share?
Yes, I should be able to.
Okay, yep. I
You
just
can
have
see
to add
that.
it. Okay, there it goes.
Perfect. Yeah, and also new website for
Yes,
TriStateFootball.com
absolutely. Looks
as well.
fantastic.
So looks great. We finally got out of the 2005, 2010 era, and we have moved on to the big 2025.
Yes, looks good.
Um, so yeah, we talked about it a little. Top 5 according to Greg Shoemaker
Guru.
is Moeller, St. X, West, Anderson, and Winton Woods, which I don't think there's a lot of huge surprises there,
Hmm.
because I know Winton Woods and Anderson were pretty much neck and neck all last year in the ECC, and we didn't really get to touch on the ECC a ton yet, but that will come. We will
Hmm.
definitely be talking about those two schools some. And then, West, it's great in the GMC the last few years, and same with X and Moeller. And you see Elder down here beating Mount Zion Prep from Maryland, 34-0. So we saw that last year with their defense. Their defense was pitching shutouts a lot and doing a really good job. So seems like the offense might be clicking a little bit more this year for the Panthers. And, Princeton, Ryle, Highlands, Covcath, all these teams we talked about. And then you see Cooper down here as well. Cooper, I mean, the Anderson offense just comes
They met
through.
the big Raptor machine. Is what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah. That Anderson offense just comes through and they don't
Yeah.
stop. They just keep coming
No,
after
they
you. And
just their defense. I will say Anderson's defense can hold their weight as well this year. I think last year
absolutely. I mean,
everyone talked.
they did last year too,
Yes,
and it
everyone talked
went
about the
very
offense last year,
yeah,
and of course the offense is good again this year. But that defense is tough. They held
yeah,
Cam O'Hara to a tough game, and Cam O'Hara, Cooper's quarterback, is a very good football player. So it was
yeah.
impressive to see that final score line. And I will just briefly touch. There is one game that I know of that's actually kind of an intriguing matchup. We literally just talked about Anderson's defense. Well, they meet West Claremont this weekend, and West Claremont, I do not know his name. I will have to do a little research before a show next week. But West Claremont's running back is quite good, and I think West
Oh yeah.
Claremont.
I watched him last year. I can't remember
Yeah,
his
West
name off the top of
Claremont
my head.
is a sleeper, I think, this year. I think
Hmm.
obviously that school's only been around for a handful of years, maybe half a decade or more. And obviously when that happens, football program takes a while to build. But the Wolves have definitely got a solid squad up at
Yeah.
West Claremont this year. So that game will be
Absolutely.
intriguing to see the final score line of as well.
Yeah, and that's some conference plays kicking off too for most of these schools. So that's an ECC matchup right there, and you got GMC matches all next week, and then so yeah, kind of just moving down the list a little bit. You can see a couple more GMC teams here with East, and then you got Taft in there too, which Taft's always interesting because I feel like sometimes we talk a lot about these D1 teams a lot or some of the top of
Yeah.
D2, but I mean, and I can't remember exactly what division Taft's in,
Four,
but I
I
know
believe
they're
they're in four.
yeah,
I could be
but I
wrong.
mean Taft could be primed for a really really good season in that division. Could go far.
Taft's always got
Um,
a solid squad. You never
mhm.
never discount Taft. They've got good players and a good team there.
Yeah.
East Central, we didn't talk any about Indiana. I'll briefly give East Central added on to their consecutive wins against Lawrenceburg, the traditional week one slate has East Central Lawrenceburg. Big rivalry. East Central took care of business once again this year. They play Harrison this coming week, which I think will be a solid game to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, which Harrison's ranked number 24, and I know they had a really solid season last year, and
Yeah,
I think they made it possibly to
pretty far.
regionals, and I think
Mm-hmm.
they got beat by LaSalle in regionals in D2 last
Yes.
year. So, um, yeah, and then we talked about Baden against Hamilton this week. Huge win for Baden.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be happy if you're playing there and a fan of that school. Seeing them come out strong to start the year, and then yeah, Hamilton, Kings they shut out Sycamore 44-0. So um, big win for Kings, and they got a test next week. I mean, Winton Woods,
Mm-hmm.
you
Another
better
great game.
you better bring it though that
Yep.
week playing Winton Woods, and you know maybe they can pull off an upset there, and make some noise in the ECC, and maybe we see some things change in the ECC this year, and
Absolutely.
then. Yeah, Lebanon, Withrow. You talked about West Claremont a little bit.
Landon
Didn't
Young,
really
there's
get
his
to.
name.
Yeah. Landon
Landon
Young.
Young.
He's a good running back.
Yeah,
And didn't talk about LaSalle too much. After beating Coleraine 42-0.
yeah,
So and Coleraine, you hope that at some point they can get back out of the gutter a little bit. I feel like ever since Bolden's left, it's been a little rough for them. So, I hope they can figure it out this year and get
hmm
some wins and build some momentum. And then you got Mason, who Mason's usually a pretty solid team. They'll end up, making some noise in the GMC. Probably played a pretty solid Springboro team. I know that's kind of out of our jurisdiction, so
hmm
I don't know a ton about Springboro. But and then Harrison, and then good old Beechwood Tigers.
Beechwood down there
Beach,
at 25, just lurking, man. But there is not a more dominant team in the tri-state, I think, than Beechwood is in their division. They are
oh yeah, I
so
think
good.
because still think they have Clay Hayden and
hmm But
forget
I think he was a
or
senior
did
last
he
year.
graduate? Fryman's the one they have. Fryman's the
Yeah.
receiver DB, and
hmm
Fryman's I know he's a good baseball player too, baseball
Yes.
football guy. Um, So yeah, and then just kind of Fairfield dropped out, but still knocking on the door. You got Batavia, Clinton Massey. Clinton Massey had a great year last year. I expect
Mhm.
similar things out of them. Indian Hill was solid last year. Talked about McNick a little. My alma mater, Oak Hill's getting some love. And then Wilmington and Wyoming. So I think we're in for a pretty good season this year.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be another fun and exciting season in the tri-state football area of expertise. I stumbled up my words there. In the Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana tri-state area, it's always great football to be had, high school level here. I think 2025 will be no different. And then that pretty much wraps it up for us. I think 2025 of the year two of the Monday Night Rewind show is going to be better than year one. You may see some exciting new changes coming up very soon. I'm not committing to anything, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
So we're excited to share that stuff. And of course, be sure to catch all of Tri-State Football's content at TriStateFootball.com. Brand new website, like Jacob mentioned, looks really nice. Make sure to check out some of our writing, some of our other staff members' writing, and all of our other content there as well. You can also catch us on X, Facebook, Instagram, and all of our TSF podcasts end up on our YouTube channel. So make sure to check that stuff out. Give us a like, give us a follow. We really appreciate it. 20 years strong. We couldn't do it without our loyal supporters. And thank you, Jacob, for agreeing to do this with me again this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
we're back.
I think
Week
we'll
one.
be shooting for about 8 o'clock. Most weeks
Yes.
we got a little bit of late start, working out some bugs
Yep.
this week. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that this will also be available as like an audio podcast on whatever
I believe so, yeah.
podcast platform you use, whether it's Spotify, Amazon, Apple, but that will be there. And we will try to be a little bit more respectful of your time and try to shorten it down. We just like to talk, man, and get excited.
Jacob and I
about,
like to yap at each other.
Yeah, and we like to talk about what's going on in the football world around here. So, but we'll try to get it down to closer to 30 minutes, so we're not encroaching on some Monday Night Football time, because I know that will be starting up soon. So.
Yeah.
Appreciate all of you guys for listening. And yeah, like Danny said, just catch all of our Tri-State football content on the website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we're coming to you on podcast platforms this year too.
So. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate everyone taking their time tonight to listen to us. And we'll see you back here again next Monday night at about 8 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.